useful technique for legacy code and refactoring in general. And you can also use it for adding new features as well. But it's called the Mikado method. If you go look it up, you can Google it. There's a book about it. I don't know that you need a whole book. It's not that complicated of an idea. I'm sure there's some nuance in the book. I have a copy. I haven't read it. But let me just explain it to you in the next couple slides, and hopefully it'll make sense. So the Mikado method starts by, I want to add a new feature to my code, or there's some bug that I want to fix, or some refactoring that I want to do, right? So in the case of refactoring, the example I'm using here is actually adding a new instrument that's not really a refactoring, but bear with me. So you have a task you want to do. You write it down on the center of a piece of paper and you circle it. And usually they do double circles, so it's obvious it's the original task. Here I just made it bold. And you start a timer, and you set the timer, and the recommended amount of time is 10 minutes. So you work on this task for 10 minutes. Right? And the goal of this Mikado method is not to immediately solve the problem. It's to take this giant problem and break it down into smaller pieces that are more manageable. So adding a new instrument is going to take you more than 10 minutes. So then we get to the next slide, where after the end of 10 minutes, we throw all our code away. Now, I know some of you are saying, throwing code away, that's horrible. Don't worry about it. You've only been working on it for 10 minutes. It's not pointless. It's not like, I wasted all this 10 minutes. No, what you did in the 10 minutes was map out the task. So now you know that adding a new instrument means, I've got to add the object to my factory pattern and come up with an enum and a way to generate the correct object. I've got to add the data I'm getting from this to the log file. I've got to add configuration for this new instrument. I've got to write the actual driver that talks to the instrument that fits into my class pattern. I also have to add a graph so the user can view my instrument. Right? So I've got to do all these other tasks. Okay? So in our 10 minutes, we tried to add the new instrument. We figured out that, there's all these other tasks that we have to do. Well, now we just repeat this. So we pick one of these other tasks. Because this example, I'm going to pick add config in the next slide, you'll see. And we set the timer for 10 minutes and we start working on that. And, look, we did not get that done either. We figured out that the add config actually means that we have to add something to the GUI, and we also have to add something to our configuration cluster and make sure that everything gets written to the file correctly. Right? So we've got two different tasks there. And then we pick one of those tasks and we repeat. And by the end, when we get way out to the bottom of the tree, we get the task done in 10 minutes. And then we pick the next task and we get that done in 10 minutes. And we start eating up part of the tree. And maybe we hit something else and it expands back out a little bit. But eventually you get to a point where you're just knocking these off. Everyone's going to be 10 minutes or less, and you're just going to get those tasks done. And eventually, when you get all the tasks done, then you'll have done the original task, which is add the new instrument. So it's really about mapping the problem space, and it's a very pragmatic way to do it because you're writing down the problems as you encounter them. And it works really well. You would think, if I'm spending 10 minutes on each one of these things and throwing it away, no, that's going to take longer. And in reality, it actually goes really smooth because by the end, each one of these things, when you knock it off, is going to take you less than 10 minutes after you've mapped out the entire task. So highly recommend trying it out. It's a very cool thing. Definitely do set the timer and do throw it away. And it works really well for refactoring because you're like, hey, my code uses this framework. I want to change it to this other framework. Or I want to change, we're using XML files. I want to use JSON. What all does that affect? And as soon as you start a task and you realize I've spent 15 or 20 minutes on this task, do the Mikado thing, right? Circle your task, write down the 4 or 5 things you want to do, and then go into the 10-minute thing. So sometimes I don't start out thinking I'm going to do the Mikado method. Sometimes I start a task and I realize this is taking way longer than I thought it would, and then I switch into Mikado mode. So if you know the task is big and it's got lots of parts, Mikado mode's great for teasing that out. If you think, this will be easy, and suddenly you're like, I'm 20 minutes in and this is not easy, that's a good time to take a step back and back into the Mikado method.